Fire Emblem Engage has a lot going on, and several unique systems when it comes to tactical RPGs. So in this video, we are going to go over 10 tips to help you use these systems effectively and dominate on the battlefield. Before a battle begins, we need to start thinking about how we are going to attack the map and which units to use. Use the Swap Spaces option to take a second and look at the map and see what enemy types are present along with where each type is located. Pay special attention to those closest to your party, and then choose and position your units accordingly. For instance, if there are more lances on one side, I like to put my axe fighters on that side, and if the other side has several axe wielders, I'll put my swordsmen on that side. Doing this can allow you to take out a couple of enemy units early, giving you a leg up for the rest of the battle. And speaking of getting a leg up, let's move on to tip number 2. We are often outnumbered during battles in Fire Emblem, and therefore sending out a lone unit usually gets them killed when they are swarmed by multiple enemies at once. I've found that a great tactic to use is to draw in smaller groups of enemies one at a time and then turn the tables by swarming them instead. To do this, send in either an armored unit if there are no mages in range, or a unit with high avoidance to just inside the range of at least one of the enemies to draw them in. Move the rest of your units where they will be within striking range once that enemy moves, but where they are still out of the enemy's current range. Once the enemy or enemies move up, you can now quickly take them out, or at least you will get the first strike, giving you the advantage. If you really want to gain an advantage on the enemy though, move to and hold choke points on the map. Some maps offer better spots than others, but when done right, this can be overpowered. The Farine Castle training battle is an excellent example of this, as this spot over here by the candlesticks only has 2 spaces that need to be held. If you put your armored units or high avoidance units in these spaces, you can bottleneck the enemy and whittle away at them with ranged attacks. Just keep an eye out for enemy mages, as these will take out your armored units in no time. But what if you want to take out enemies in no time? Well, then you need to use this next tip. When moving a unit next to an enemy and selecting attack, you can see in the middle bottom of the screen a preview of the entire combat, including the enemy's counterattack. Pay attention to this, as it gives you a much more detailed and accurate picture of the combat than the flashing health bar on the battle map does. This tells you the damage of your first attack, whether it kills or breaks the enemy, and then it gives you the enemy's counterattack. This will also list out second strikes if you or your enemy is fast enough to get them. You want to look at this carefully because the preview you get on the battle map, as you can see here, will show the possible damage your unit will take, not the actual damage. Going into the detailed preview, you can see that my first attack will actually kill the unit, so I won't actually take any damage, unless my unit misses, of course. You can see the accuracy of the attack to the left of this preview as well, though, so if this says 100%, you have nothing to worry about. Closely related to checking the battle preview is choosing different weapons and seeing how they affect the attack. For instance, if you are attacking an armored unit, use one of the weapons that will actually do damage to them, like the Armor Slayer. Or, if you're trying to inflict a break but your attack has a low accuracy, try switching to a weapon that has higher accuracy. You may do less damage, but at least you can break the enemy and not take the counterattack damage from them. When using spellcasters, remember that different spells may do more or less damage as well, depending on the enemy unit type. I should also mention here that the preview you get on the battle map before selecting attack uses the last weapon used, not necessarily the best weapon for the current situation, which makes checking the detailed preview and attacks with different weapons all the more important. Using emblems can be very powerful and sometimes gives your units access to weapons or spells they normally can't use, which means you need to be careful to choose the most advantageous time to engage. This can be easier said than done though, so a good rule of thumb would be if there are any of those blue orbs on the map to recharge your engage meter, then engaging early is good because you can simply recharge after your 3 turns are up. Otherwise, try to engage and use a special attack when it will be most effective. For instance, if you're in a boss fight, you might want to wait until you're within striking distance of the boss to engage. That way you can be sure to get your best attacks off on it. Or if you are using Sigurd, make sure you have some enemies lined up to make the best use of Override, or have a need for the extra movement range. Depending on the length of the battle, you may only get one engage use for each character, so make it count. Now it's time to make your money count. By far, the most effective use of your money will be upgrading the weapons your party uses and buying newer, better versions when they become available. Upgraded weapons can make a huge difference in battle, not only in raw damage output, but in the accuracy of your attacks as well. Furthermore, as mentioned earlier, some weapons can help with certain enemy types like armored units, cavalry, or others. So giving your units these weapons can make them more effective in facing these foes. I wouldn't spend too much money on donations to the various kingdoms right away, as this seems to make the skirmish battles that pop up much harder. I've looked into this a little bit, and there's a lot of speculation on what determines the level of these skirmishes, but the donation level certainly does play a part. So maybe hold off on donations until the skirmish battles are getting too easy, or the rewards too small. When you unlock inherited traits from an emblem for one of your characters, it doesn't automatically get assigned. I made this mistake early on, not realizing that you actually need to go into the Manage Skills menu on your character and assign the new skill. You can only equip 2 skills at a time, so you need to really think about the build you want for a character before you go trying to unlock every possible skill for them, as the SP needed for this seems to be in fairly short supply. Speaking of short supply, you really need to figure out a core team in this game and stick to it. I made the mistake of making donations to the various regions in the game early on, and thereby made the skirmishes much harder. This in turn has made it near impossible for me to level up my lower level characters in any meaningful or quick way. But I really think, based on some of the pre-release material from Nintendo, that the developers intended on you having to make hard choices and choose a small group out of the larger roster to use and keep relevant. While it is possible to grind heavily to get those lower level characters up to par, most players will not want to put that kind of time into the grind. So find your favorites early and keep them in your party, only trading them out when you find a character that you like better. The skirmishes that pop up on the world map are a great way to earn some extra XP, money, and materials. Playing through some of these will be essential to getting the resources to upgrade your weapons, and to keep maybe a few extra units viable. As just mentioned, it can be very hard to keep everyone viable, but you may be able to have a couple bench units that can be swapped in and out if you use skirmishes to keep their level close to the main party's level. You can earn even more gold, experience, and resources from skirmishes if you make donations to the various kingdoms, once you are ready for a tougher challenge. I have one bonus tip to add here, and that is to use the terrain on each battle map. Terrain that gives you an avoidance bonus in particular is extremely useful, and can even be ridiculously overpowered if a unit with already high base avoidance is using it. I've won a battle with only 3 units left against 10 plus enemy units by hiding in the bushes. Every enemy attack missed, allowing me to whittle down the enemy with counterattacks and my direct attacks on my turn. So hide in the bushes. But don't hide your enjoyment of this video. Please give it a like if you did enjoy it or learn something new, and leave a comment with any tips you would add. I always enjoy hearing from you guys. If you'd like to see more of my content, try this video here. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and keep on gaming.